I'm also saying that light makes the food web. So now light makes food, so food expresses time inside your body. Now we're getting into the conversation I like about food, which is circadian biology, which circadian biology basically has to do with the time in your body. So I'm going to go ahead and say that this guy down here at the equator, the banana grows here, he eats the banana, it tells his body, because it's made of light from photosynthesis, no one argues about this, he eats the banana, it expresses inside his gut, it tells his body his circadian rhythm, it tells him what time it is in that environment. Summertime, all year round, high light environment. We ship the banana up here, same banana, tells his body wrong time. Now it makes him sick as a result. So now the whole conversation has to become more about time than necessarily about the food itself, which the whole goal of this talk is to get people to take all those diets. The only one that is geared towards time is intermittent fasting, which is why that's an interesting trend that's coming up, because people that I'm excited about, because it finally asks the question of when, as opposed to just what. Because I'm saying you drink a cup of coffee first thing in the morning versus last thing at night, the coffee didn't change, but the effects changed, because you are also on the clock. So your biochemistry, or your body, is also changing throughout the day. So now we know food is made of light. Now with the food web, if you can see this, we kind of got sun, and the plants eat the sun. Out of that they make sugars, fruits, plants. Now if you go down and the animal eats the plant, they convert it. So if you eat a piece of bacon, it's low water, higher fat. How much fat is on the banana? Right? Basically, this has to do with stability. Meaning the lower the light environment, the more stable the foods have to be. Which is why the Inuits were eating high fat, tons of fish. They were cold. The cold temperature, what determines temperature? Also the light environment. So now light creates food, light creates time, light creates environment. So you're starting to see why anybody writing a book about any of these things, not mentioning the factor that determines all those things, is missing the boat. So this is why I'm doing this talk, is to try to say, when people ask me, what should I eat, which was the title of the talk, I'm saying, if you can see it, when and where. So I couldn't write a diet book, but I could write a book about why no one should write diet books. Because the question of when and where determines what you would eat. Now I'm saying that the light environment now depends on what you would eat. So this was the case. And you understand that in the summer you're higher carb, winter you're going to be less carb, and it depends. The further north you go, so now we're talking latitude, further north you go, the more stable you got to rely on the food to be.
Is there a genetic component to this as well?
Well, here's the thing. Yes and yes, but I will say epigenetics is now being understood to how genes express themselves. So there's genetics, there's epigenetics, is the expression of genes. Epigenetics is environmentally determined. What determines the environment? Light. Once again, you see that like what we're coming back to here. So if the light environment now determines the epigenetics, then it determines what? The expression of the genes. Well, that's game changer, right? Because there's so much talk about, well, my genes, and that's why my genetics are pretty trashed. And I was super overweight my whole life until I got in touch with epigenetics, altered my environment, but the environment always has to be filtered through the light environment, because light is dictating every aspect of the environment that you're in.
What's epigenetics?
Epigenetics is the switching on and off of genes, the expression of the genes, meaning that you may have a certain genetic code, but that may or may not express itself depending on the environment that you're in. Does that make sense?
Like a real simple example would be you have the gene to be tall because your parents gave you that gene, but you're malnourished as a child, so you're not going to grow as tall as you
For the
otherwise
next
would.
generation.
Yeah, so essentially the environment is playing a factor in the way that your genes come about.
It turns
So-
them on and off.
It turns them on and off. So the whole question of what people are saying about food in terms of all these different diets, I'm trying to reframe. Now, of course, I will say what we would traditionally think of as junk food, for my category, would be heavily processed food. So the more processed it is, the less natural it is. The less natural it is, the less your natural body recognizes it. So we're throwing unnatural foods, meaning the more processed they are, the worse they are. I think every one of those diets would probably agree with that. The intermittent fasting doesn't really deal with the what, but all the others are going to kind of accept that. So I'm going to say the validity of the blood type diet. All the blood type diets that you can have are get rid of junk food. So everybody who gets rid of highly processed food wins. Like that's a pretty easy one. So let's just assume that. But now I'm going to say the caveat is also that the food that tells you the wrong time is junk food. Same thing as the banana now becomes junk food to the Inuit, not to the guy that's maybe the traditional vegan at the equator, sitting in a diaper essentially in the sun, right? He's getting tons of light, which is what makes food. He's getting tons of light on his skin and his eye. So now we're changing the conversation also because your light environment that dictates your food is also affected by your skin and your eye and how much light that's taking in. So now the whole conversation of food, if this is covered up and this is covered up, then what is everybody talking about? Food. This food talk is hopefully to get you to say, oh, this matters way less than we think it does if we open up the other ways that we get light into our body. Huge takeaway. Because now the when and the where, the when is what time is it, and the where is what is my light environment relative to my skin and my eye while I'm eating the food. Because it's literally changes as fast as how quick does your body change temperature. If you go outside from your warm house and it's super cold outside, your body temperature changes that fast. Temperature is all still, once again, dictated by light. So don't think that your biochemistry does not change just as fast according to temperature as it does to your light environment. So now, this is historical. Local seasonal would be the story I would tell you. I'd say eat local seasonal and you'll get the right foods at the right times. Meaning mangoes here. The nice thing is you guys all live here pretty much, so let's just say mangoes here, bad news. Why? Because they communicate the wrong time. Now here's the thing. You're getting way more light through your eye and your skin than other people. Guess what you can eat more of? The mango. So now your food choices are not necessarily just determined in and of themselves, but they're taking into account the other light factors in the diet, which is why nobody can tell you what to eat but you, and it changes all the time, which makes things simple and complicated depending. Hard to write a diet book for everybody if it's that specific. But nice if you know your life and your light environment, then you know how you can optimize your health far better than anyone else. Now, based on what I'm telling you, your MD, naturopath, chiropractor, anybody who's essentially giving you food advice and nutrition advice, what are the lights like in their office? Because now we're entering the conversation of this whole story was about natural light. So I'm telling you, natural light tells your body what time it is, and that's what makes the food. So now we're changing the game, because now we're talking about the 3 ways that you eat is by your skin, your eye, and your gut. The 3 ways you take in light. Now I'm not saying that the other pieces of food are not important. All the chemistry that goes into food, amino acids, all the rest. You need that. it is like if I had a chessboard here with chess pieces, you could say, oh, this is what a rook does. Everybody can envision a chessboard and chess pieces. Each piece does something different, but they only do it in the context of the board itself. So any talk about food is often talking about the pieces without the context of light and time, which is the board. So I'm not saying that the eating is unimportant and that you don't need to eat as long as you're getting enough sun. But I am saying the way you eat, depending on your sun, changes, which is why different people are having different results in different locations, and you can see maybe people promoting a vegan diet can do that, but they're probably maybe have a way better tan than somebody who's getting a benefit from keto. Why is keto trending up in our society? Because we're indoors more. So the more indoors we are, the more our environment is saying we're in a low light environment, which was traditionally Inuit. So now Inuit traits are gaining in popularity because we are essentially now more Inuit. So we have traditional local seasonal diets, and now we have modern life. And here's the game changer that most people aren't thinking about, is that LED lights are how old? The newest lighting is 5 years old? Maybe? Anyway, let's say it's 5 years old. If natural light tells us what time the appropriate time is for our body to express its genes properly, and I'm saying do all the other chemistry and hormones in the body, then essentially the fake light is communicating improper time to your biochemistry.
It's also very narrow bandwidth, so you don't get this.
Exactly. So the thing
What did you say?
he said it's very narrow bandwidth. So basically the thing that makes a light energy efficient is that it has more frequencies of light stripped out of it. So it uses less energy. True. Unfortunately, the sun has a diverse spectrum of light that changes throughout the day. Now we could go deep. I erased all the stuff I wanted to talk about, which had everything to do with electrons and subatomic type stuff, but it's still a story of light. So now I'm going to take it back to food. So you can start to say, okay, what should I be eating? I'm going to say, now you know the more indoors you are, the more you got to eat like the Inuit. Because it's as specific as indoors versus outdoors. Let's say you two guys have the same diet, you eat the same food, you buy the same groceries, you literally split your meals. One of you guys works the night shift, the other one doesn't. The food's going to affect you completely differently. See how that changes. So the night shift guy has got to do way more right because he has way bad light. So now what diet can he go? Well, this completely changes. I'm going to suggest he goes way more Inuit, meaning high fat, way more animal products. I mean, we could get into the animal product story, but basically iron has way more electrons than magnesium. And also here in California, the story with plants is that organic, non-organic does not address water at all. What are plants mostly made of? Because the food chain we talked about, right? They're low on the food, or high further up the food chain, so they're more volatile, meaning they rot fast, meaning they're less stable, they're more water. They communicate time way more than maybe a piece of bacon does. Once again, I'm not saying one is good or bad, I'm giving it context so you can make decisions for yourself. But the water is not evaluated even remotely. Now, what if I told you the water in California is different than the water in Indiana? So now celery juice is a completely different story. If celery juice doesn't even take water into account whatsoever, organic, non-organic, whatever, now is the celery grown under fake light or natural light? Shoot, we just... See this? If this goes away, you think it doesn't affect this? So now people doing wheatgrass shots from a flat grown under fake light with junk water. Think I want that wheatgrass shot? Not me. Maybe somebody else in a different context. Why? Because if their light environment's good enough and their cells, or essentially the thing within their cells, being mitochondria, which I've been trying not to talk about, if those function better, you can do way less wrong. Or way more wrong. Like you can get away with way more. Which is why we're all different. And yes, there are other factors. So like, Ben here is super athletic. He's an athlete. He can pound protein shakes all day long. Why? Well, because protein shakes were developed by athletes. Why? To spike the insulin, because protein stripped away from fat converts to sugar and carries with it the amino acids into his big muscles. So he can do it. Now, but the old lady that just wants to get more protein in her diet, she may not want a sugar spike. Did the protein powder change? No. Did the amino acid profile in the protein powder change? No. The context changed. So then the person, he has to look at his environment relative to his activity, but also the better his light environment is, the better he's going to acclimate to that insulin spike. So see, that also changes. So him as an athlete, maybe exercising in one environment may change versus another relative to the protein shake. Everyone has to ask their own questions, but the one thing I want you to remember is that the protein shake didn't change. So are they good or bad? Anyone telling you this is a superfood, you gotta go, this person that just said it's a superfood doesn't know what they're talking about. Because it's only a superfood if the when and the where makes sense. Otherwise, I'm saying name your superfood in the wrong context, it's junk food. So this is the point, is that the when and the where are both dictated by light, and the food is made of light. Now I'm saying the more light you get into your body, the better you're going to be. Meaning if you get more light into your body through your skin and your eye, you get to eat more junk food. It's a true story. I asked my father, he's in Rochester, New York, this is where I grew up, it's as gray there as it is sunny here. Everybody, I just went back in November, my father is white as a ghost, and now a new diabetic. So he's asking me, he's not health conscious at all, he's saying, when do I get to eat carbs? And I say to him, I've seen pictures of him when he was younger, happiest time in his life, he'd mow outdoors. He was dark tan, blonde hair. I said, how much were you thinking about food when you were out mowing at that time? He didn't have to think about it at all. He didn't even have a worry in the world. So now I'm just telling him, let me know when your tan is the same as it was back then, and then I'll tell you how many carbs you get to eat. But I said, until then, you're an Inuit. See, because he's in Rochester, New York. It's cold, it's dark, there's no bananas growing there. He doesn't get to eat bananas. So, but the banana doesn't change. So the whole conversation of food, as we begin to kind of unpack it, is that I'm trying to communicate is that it's far more specific, and that it's way less of a factor than it should be in our society, because the thing that I'm saying has changed in the past few years is our light and tech environment. If the light environment changes, what does that mean? The actual environment and how your food is metabolized changes inside your body. So now the things that were true 5 years ago are not true anymore about the same foods, because the light environment is worse and we're in front of screens more. The screens are communicating bad time to us. So now you understand, you eat health food in front of a junk light screen, your body is hybridizing those two things on average, so it may turn into junk food. That's a little different, because I'm saying that if we go outside in the sun right now, my skin is going to turn red. It's going to turn red because the iron in my blood is going to raise to the surface to collect light. And it's going to boost my nitric oxide. And that nitric oxide is going to pump that light information throughout my body to communicate it. Now, if you allow and agree that happens, which is, I think it's a pretty non-controversial thing in terms of like your skin turning red and me explaining why, we just changed the blood based on the light environment. Okay? Where does food go to be spread throughout the body after it gets broken down? The blood. Well, if I just change the blood based on the environment, the light environment, did I just change the food in the blood? Yeah. So now the whole conversation becomes different. In the modern world, we got to think about it. So guess what I'm saying to my dad besides get a tan? Change your light environment first. Why change the light environment? Because that dictates the when and the where. So if that's bad, I don't care about the what. That dictates what you should be eating. So that's why in modern society, people are having, the books that we were reading 10 years ago and the studies that we were doing, how many nutritional studies are done taking light into account? None. If none of these books were written with taking light into account. See how we're all eating all this food and missing the boat, and the fact is some of us can completely eat junk food and be good, and other people better be fully keto all the time. Just a different story. So how are we done on time? Are we 2:30? 2:30? Nice. Now I could get into all kinds of different stuff about this. The water story is an important one for California because water that is close to the ocean is different than water in other places. So that changes, our produce changes as a result of the water. That's maybe something that people don't think about. When it comes to what you should be eating, if your light environment is bad, eat more like the Inuit. Meaning that the plants are more volatile, that you're going to get a worse reaction from them. I mean, what do you think? Yeah, let's break it out. Let's do questions or whatever, because hopefully the goal of this was just to reframe the entire conversation of food towards time and location. And I'm saying as specific as 20 feet away changes the food that you eat. So, and how important it is that if you're in alternative health or mainstream health, neither one are having that recognition. So it's so important that we start to ask our practitioners of any kind about what I'm calling, what is called circadian biology, which is time expressed in your body. And just ask them, does melatonin, which is a hormone, express itself the same 24 hours a day? No, it comes at a certain time. What tells the melatonin when to express itself? What tells time? Light. How many other hormones you got in your body? Whole lot. You think melatonin's the only one that's set to that clock? Or are all of them set to the clock? So I tell people at CalFresh, which by the way, there's coupons back there, for CalFresh, so pick one up before you go. But at CalFresh, there's 140 employees. They all show up different times, do different things, wear different name tags. They all start and stop. A little spot on the wall called a time clock. Time clock breaks. CalFresh has two choices. Fix the time clock, hiring contract laborers every day. Which business is going to function better? Time clock fixed. Guarantee it. So guess what all the 140 employees are in your brain and your body? Hormones, chemicals, all the things people are telling you about and not telling you when or where. So, and what is food? Chemicals. So now you see how your chemistry is interacting with time. So it's so important that we start to reframe the question and ask the practitioners and the authors of all these diets, what do they know about light and time? Because if they don't know about light and time, do they know what food is made of? If you don't know what it's made of, can you really write a book about it? I don't know. This is my semi-controversial message about what to eat. The takeaway, modern life, chances are, I'm guessing your light environment is bad. If it's bad, so now we get practical with you guys to help you out. The reason that eating things that are more stable and avoiding a lot of the things that are maybe were considered superfoods in the context that they were grown need to be eliminated. And you need to eat way more, I will say, like fish. Why fish? Inuits ate tons of fish. Why did they eat tons of fish? The DHA. The DHA interacts with light. It's most concentrated in your eye. Second, in the brain, then the rest of the body. There's no accidents in nature. So why in the eye? It converts sunlight to DC electric current. So now you see this picture here in the eye. Guess what junk light destroys in the eye? DHA. If your light environment changed in the past 5 years, and we agreed that it has, then what do you need more of in your diet that's getting destroyed in your eye? DHA. So now a book that was written 10 years ago becomes different, less relevant than it is right now. This is obvious to me because I understand how DHA interacts with light. Then in the brain, now remember, the trick about fish is that the DHA that they have is converted from algae. The algae is in a certain form. The fish eat the algae on the food chain, and it converts it to the usable form of DHA. So people that are in low light environments are going to get a big benefit from lots of fish. Fish is naturally what? Real fatty. Why fat? Because the body runs on either glucose or ketones. In nature, does nature ever mix fats and carbs? I can't think of one example. Does nature make mistakes? No, it does not. So what is all our junk food? A mix of fats and carbs. So now you got a burger and fries, and I'm saying maybe fries aren't so bad without the burger, or maybe the burger's not so bad without the bun and the fries, depending on your where and your when. Because here, you can probably eat the fries because you're getting so much light that it doesn't make a lick of difference. Up here, you're eating the burger, there's no fries up there. So you see why this becomes junk food? What's every study on meat consumption? Has it excluded the meat and potatoes that come with it at every restaurant in the country? So do we have a misunderstanding about both those things? Yeah, both of them. So I'm saying, like, depending on your light environment, you may not want to mix your fats and your carbs because nature doesn't mix fats and carbs. The reason it doesn't do that, because you either run on glucose or ketones. Neither one is good or bad in the right context. But if you try and inhale and exhale, both are breathing, but you don't do them at the same time. If you do, you choke. You get neither one. So why is mixing the carbs with the fats bad? The body uses the carbs, stores the fats, because it prefers glucose. In nature, the protein tends to be bound to a fat so that it will be broken down low and slow. So protein in a steak or in an egg, even though protein converts to glucose, does it very slowly because it's a stable food, because it's further up the food chain, and it's bound to a fat. But if you take the same protein, egg protein, right, strip the yolk out of it, powder it down, you've got protein powder. Now the same protein converts to glucose quick, because you've altered it. Make sense? So I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm saying what's your goal and know when and where you are. But mixing the fats and carbs may be an issue, which is why people who, like bodybuilders, have this figured out easy. Because when they bulk, they do rice and chicken, no fat. Why the rice? To spike the insulin. Why the chicken? To shuttle the amino acids can be provided to shuttle the amino acids to the muscle through an insulin spike caused by the rice. Real basic. They know to go low fat because they're trying to grow. See, so even now, trying to grow, maybe in your life cycle, maybe you also got to ask the question, when am I in my life cycle? Shoot. Because now a person in the growth phase of their life cycle might be able to get away with eating way more fruits and vegetables. Why? Than somebody in the longevity phase of their life cycle. So now I'm saying that literally what you ate 10 years ago is changed based on your time. Once again, it comes back to time and cycles. So you got to know, when am I? Am I trying to grow? Now, the same bodybuilder goes into a cut. What does he do? He cuts out